Hey everybody, John the Other here, obviously. And I want to talk about the criminal court system in kind of broad terms and the way the criminal court system works in pretty much every single Western country. And it's this. If you are accused of a crime, it is your right in most Western systems of law to reserve evidence of your innocence until you get to the court. Don't give away your evidence in advance. Don't reveal your evidence. Go all the way to court. Wait till your accuser makes the full story of the accusation in the courtroom under oath, and then ambush them in the court with evidence that you are innocent of the crime in question. That's kind of fundamental to the way Western law systems work. And I'll go through that again with a kind of simplified example. Let's say, for example, that stealing somebody's lunch out of the lunchroom fridge was something that made its way into a criminal court. I know that's kind of goofy, but I'm using that as a simplified example so that we don't get distracted by this type of crime or that type of crime. We can talk about stealing somebody's lunch without getting too excited and distracted. So let's say you and I work in the same company, and you accuse me of stealing your lunch out of the lunchroom fridge and eating it because I'm clearly evil. I'm bald, which is a sign of being evil, and I have a goatee, also evil, and I wear a black t-shirt, completely evil. And being an evil person, I have obviously gone into the lunchroom fridge and stolen your lunch and eaten it out of pure malice. And I ate your yogurt with the fruit on the bottom, and I ate your ham and cheese sandwich, and you reported me, and now we're going to go to court. So, having been accused of this, I'm very upset, and obviously I say, no, I didn't do it. But I go and I get a copy of the security tape from the lunchroom quietly, and I keep a copy of that, and I don't tell anybody until we get to court. And I sit quietly in the court on the day of my trial for stealing your lunch, and you go through your whole story, and you get the court very excited, and the jury's mad at me, because only a truly evil person would steal your lunch and eat the yogurt with the fruit on the bottom. And then after you've given this testimony in the courtroom, comes time for me to make my statement, and I reveal that I have a security tape showing that you ate your own lunch. Your accusation is a big fat lie, and the court fines you for wasting their time, or they tell you you're very naughty, don't do it again. Okay? Now, it's a trivial example, but I'm saying it like this to illustrate a point. If I had to tell you in advance of a trial about me stealing your lunch and eating it out of the lunchroom fridge, if I had to tell you in advance of us going to court that I had the security tape, you could modify your story to bypass my evidence of my innocence and get me convicted by changing the details of your story in such a way that me having the tape showing you ate your own lunch wouldn't matter in the trial. Okay? Well, he also ate my lunch on another day, whatever. And your ability as an accused person in a Western criminal court to ambush your accuser with evidence is fundamental to the way Western justice works, because it prevents a false accuser from changing their story to accommodate the evidence. Change the story and bypass the evidence of innocence. This is why we have this rule, this basic foundation, that an accused person can reserve their evidence and ambush their accuser with it in the courtroom so that the story can't be modified afterwards to bypass that evidence. Now, having explained that, I want to read you a segment of an article published today on the National Post, the headline of which is Saskatchewan Judge Rules Sex Assault Trial Reforms Passed by the Liberal Government are Unconstitutional. And of course, I am talking about Bill C-51, the changes to sex assault law under Bill C-51. Now, for those who don't remember, Bill C-51, among many other changes, said that communications of a sexual nature are disallowed as defense evidence in a sex assault trial unless that communication is disclosed to the court, to the prosecution, and to the accuser in advance of the trial and approved to be allowed as defense evidence, which means that an accuser gets advance notice, advance warning of the defendant's evidence, allowing them to change their story before they go to court proper. Change the story so that the evidence that is revealed in advance of the court can be bypassed and dismissed and doesn't matter. Saskatchewan judge rules sex assault trial reforms passed by the Liberal government are unconstitutional. I'm going to read a couple of paragraphs from this story. A Saskatchewan judge has found the Liberal government sex assault trial reforms are unconstitutional because they force defense lawyers to disclose too much of their evidence to the complainant ahead of time, potentially allowing the complainant to modify their testimony in response. Where have I heard this before? I'm sure there's a YouTube channel where somebody said something like this. I can't remember what it's called. Let's skip ahead a little bit. The judge's decision, which they quote in this article, reads in part as follows. This is Judge Bruce Henning. He says, "In my opinion, the Crown arguments do not address adequately the effect of disclosure of evidence to the complainant that may allow the complainant to prepare for trial ready to explain and minimize inconsistencies, omissions, additions, or other modifications in giving their evidence." I think somebody has said this before. I can't remember who it was. So, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but this is not the end of Bill C-51. This still has to go all the way up to the Supreme Court, where it will be decided if this law, these changes to law, are going to be thrown out, discarded for being unconstitutional. Although I think it is likely that these changes will be discarded and got rid of by the Supreme Court. Go back to the drawing board. You've done a bad thing. What you've done is corrupt and pervert the Western system of justice and the Canadian courts. And you might look at this as a victory. And I suppose in a very small way it is. But I think it's not a victory. And here's why. Even if this law gets thrown out in the Supreme Court, what has actually happened is that our Parliament, our Liberal government and its Parliament, has decided to, in a certain circumstance, in a certain type of crime, sex assault, throw away the idea of innocence until proven guilty. Throw away the idea that evidence is the deciding factor in guilt or innocence. It's an experiment. It's a bold and wild experiment reversing the onus of proof in particular types of trials and radically increasing the number of accusations and radically increasing the number that a false accusation is going to result in a conviction. This experiment, which has been run not on disposable lab animals, not in a computer trial, this experiment was run on live human beings, costing an unknown number of people their lives, their freedom, their sanities, destroying their families, ending their careers. So our Parliament is running experiments with actual human beings, destroying lives to test out their new system, see how well it works, uncaring of the cost in human life and destruction to families, destruction of careers, creating poverty, creating lifelong trauma for people who are actually innocent, smashing their families, taking parents away from children. Well, that doesn't matter. The only people we are going to destroy are the ones who don't matter. Well, yeah, the ones who don't matter, maybe your father. Doesn't matter. Maybe your brother. Oh, okay, he doesn't matter. We can throw him away. We're doing an experiment. It's for science. Maybe your son. Throw him on the fire. We're doing an experiment. So even if this law is thrown out, we still have the problem that our government has decided to do human-destroying experiments on innocent members of the public, members of your family, regardless that this law might just be swept away. We still have a Parliament willing to do human-destroying experiments on your father, your husband, your brother, your son, maybe your boss, maybe your employee, maybe your coworker, and if you're watching this channel, maybe you. Thanks for your very kind attention, and as always, have a lovely, lovely day.